Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. In Crimea, there's a new threat of invasion as Russia increases its military presence along its border with Ukraine. According to Ukrainian security officials and the Defense Council, Russia has deployed 80,000 troops, 270 tanks, and 140 combat planes close to the border. They've created what's being described as a threat of a full-scale invasion from various directions, and the Russians are within a 2-hour drive of Kiev. Moscow has denied any such intentions. Meanwhile, in a show of solidarity, President Barack Obama met with Ukraine's Prime Minister at the White House on Wednesday. Arseniy Yatsenyuk is asking the West to defend Ukraine against Russia. President Obama vowed to stand with Ukraine. On Thursday, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said that Russia risks massive political and economic consequences if Moscow does not enter into negotiations that achieve results. As for Crimea, Sunday's referendum asking residents if they wish to become part of Russia is going forward as planned. Ukraine's government and Western nations have denounced the referendum as illegitimate. Growing unrest continues in Venezuela. At least 9 have been killed this week in clashes between authorities and anti-government student-led demonstrators. Steep inflation, shortages of basic goods, and one of the highest homicide rates in the world have led to protests against the socialist government. Authorities say at least 25 deaths were caused by protests, which began a month ago. President Nicolas Maduro is blaming the opposition party for attempting to instigate an overthrow. He's promising a further crackdown and has already jailed opposition leaders. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church there has become a target of violence by those allied with the Venezuelan government. The Bishops' Conference reports that several churches have been subjected to attacks in recent days, including the interruption of Mass, the destruction of a tabernacle, an altar, and consecrated hosts. Fides News Agency further reports that a priest was beaten by security forces. And a respite of good news for Syrian Christians this week as 13 nuns held captive since December were freed. The Orthodox sisters were the last remaining Christians in the besieged city of Maula when Islamist rebels took them from their convent. In exchange for the nuns, the rebels won the release of a number of women being held prisoner by the Syrian government. Conflicting reports put that number between 25 and 150. Other reports claim that the Assad regime paid a ransom of $4 million for the nuns' release. The Catholic hierarchy in Syria released a statement asking for prayer and fasting for their people who continue to suffer the effects of this 4-year civil conflict. And the Daily Mail is reporting that North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un has ordered the execution of 33 Christians accused of attempting a government overthrow. According to the report, the 33 had received money from a South Korean Baptist minister in order to establish as many as 500 underground churches. The minister, Kim Jun-wook, was arrested and jailed last year for the alleged crime. At a state-controlled press conference last week, Minister Kim apologized for attempting to destroy the North Korean government and its political system. The Vatican is confirming a recent media report that Pope Francis will travel to South Korea in mid-August. While there, he'll participate in a church-sponsored Asian Youth Day, as well as preside at the beatification of the Korean martyrs. The recently appointed Cardinal of Seoul said that he hopes the papal visit brings reconciliation and peace to the Korean peninsula. And on this first anniversary of the pontificate of Pope Francis, U.S. House Speaker John Boehner has extended a formal and open invitation to Pope Francis to address a joint meeting of Congress. Speaker Boehner, who is Roman Catholic, said in a statement on Thursday that the Pope has inspired millions with his pastoral manner and servant leadership. Continuing, the speaker said, "It is with reverence and admiration that I've invited Pope Francis as head of state of the Holy See and the first pope to hail from the Americas to address a joint meeting of the United States Congress. More on the improbable and fascinating first year of the pontificate of Francis in our next segment. Meanwhile, 2 American cities are making their respective pitches for a papal visit in 2015. Philadelphia Archbishop Charles Chaput, Mayor Michael Nutter, and Pennsylvania Governor Tom Corbett announced this week that they're going to travel to Rome later in March with the hope of personally inviting and encouraging the Holy Father to visit the city of brotherly love. Philadelphia is hosting the church's 8th World Meeting of Families in September of next year. Now, not wanting to be left out, Green Bay, Wisconsin Mayor Jim Schmidt is also extending a 2015 invite to Pope Francis. Schmidt hopes that the Pope would be interested in a pilgrimage to the Shrine of Our Lady of Good Help. He is even suggesting that the Pope might celebrate Mass at Lambeau Field. Mr. Mayor, throw in a Packers game and it's a sure thing. Back to business here. A group of nearly 200 Roman Catholic employers have filed a new class action lawsuit against the federal contraception mandate. The recently formed Catholic Benefits Association, which includes archdioceses, an insurance company, and a nursing home, opposed the HHS mandate. It requires many religious organizations to facilitate coverage for abortifacients, contraception, and sterilization for their employees. Oklahoma City Archbishop Paul Coakley, who serves on the association's board of directors, told Catholic News Service, "We cannot in good conscience provide such coverage, which undermines the dignity of the human person and the sanctity of human life." Archbishop John Nienstedt of St. Paul and Minneapolis is returning to public ministry. This after authorities announced Tuesday that the Archbishop had been cleared of criminal allegations that he inappropriately touched a minor nearly 5 years ago. In December, the Archbishop took the extraordinary step of removing himself from public ministry while the allegation was investigated. The strongly denied claim was that the Archbishop had placed his hand on the backside of a boy during a post-confirmation photograph. The county attorney's office issued a memo saying there was not sufficient evidence for prosecution. They also said the allegation seemed unlikely, as none of the other 11 people in the photograph witnessed any such touching. He was cleared of all charges. Archbishop Nienstedt said he's looking forward to returning to public ministry, especially during Holy Week and the feast of Easter. Some sad news. Cardinal Francis George, the Archbishop of Chicago, is again battling cancer. He announced this week that his cancer is, quote, beginning to show new signs of activity. The Cardinal was first diagnosed with bladder cancer back in 2006. In the summer of 2012, he learned that his cancer had spread to his kidney and liver. After going into remission for a year, it has returned. Cardinal George will undergo more aggressive chemotherapy. He intends to continue his administrative and public duties through this latest round of treatment. Please keep Francis Cardinal George in your prayers.